are generally worse than foreseen ones, generally. And that doesn't necessarily mean that all foreseen harms are okay. Well, that's great, but we're philosophers, so we're going to want to know exactly when intended harms are worse, and why there can be exceptions. Especially if we're relying on the DDE to make practical decisions, we're going to need to know. Otherwise, how do we know we're not in one of those special cases where building this new road and causing that foreseen harm is actually a really bad thing to do? Shelley Kagan points out a bunch of other potential problems with the DDE. First off, it appears to make self-defense impermissible in certain cases. If you're in a kill or be killed scenario and you have to kill your attacker to save your own life, then you intend harm to them as a means to doing that. The fact that it kills them is your reason for doing it, so the DDE would say that's not alright. But most people would intuitively say that self-defense is an okay action to take. And what about if you sacrifice yourself to save others? Then you're intending harm to yourself as a means to achieving some end. So doesn't the DDE say that that's not acceptable? Now, just to be clear, Kagan is not saying that these challenges are impossible to meet. You could try and answer them, or you could deny that they are really problems. But these are the kinds of things that you will need to address if you are going to defend the DDE. But Kagan also thinks that there are deeper problems. All of these challenges have been assuming, as the DDE does, that there is actually some morally significant distinction between intended harms and foreseen harms. We've just been talking about how difficult it is to draw the line. But why are intended harms supposedly worse? If you're very clever, you'll already have spotted that the DDE is incompatible with consequentialism. Consequentialism is the position that actions should be morally evaluated based only on their consequences. But the DDE says that in some cases, even though the consequences are the same, some actions are worse. So, why? Thomas Nagel says that if you intend harm, you make evil your goal. He didn't mean cosmic or spiritual evil. He just meant definitionally that which should be avoided, that which is bad. If you intend harm, then you are allowing yourself to be guided by that which should repel you, and therefore, he says, your action is morally worse. Kagan doesn't buy this, and, full disclosure, neither do I. Kagan says that how do we know evil should always be avoided? Maybe evil is like pain, and that it's good to generally avoid it, but sometimes, like if you get a vaccination or the pain of going to the gym, it can be worth it. Just because it generally repels us doesn't mean we should always avoid it. Personally, I don't think Nagel does enough to explain why evil should be avoided. He says we should avoid making evil our goal, but what's the nature of that should there? Is that a moral should? How is he going to explain that? And again, nobody's saying these things are impossible, but if you're going to defend the DDE, you're going to have to step up. So, to summarise, the doctrine of double effect, this idea that there's a morally significant distinction between intended and foreseen harms, raises a whole bunch of questions about how and whether it should be applied, and that's even if we can make sense of the distinction to begin with. And because we use it so much when deciding public policy, like healthcare budgets and whether or not to go to war, to superhero films, if it turns out there is no distinction, and that foreseen harms are actually just as bad as intended ones, this could have really big consequences for all of us. What do you think? Is there a morally significant distinction between intended harms and foreseen harms? Let me know what you think in the comments. Next time we could either do What is Fate, or we could do Can Punishment be Justified? So let me know which one you'd rather see. And for more philosophical videos from me every Friday, don't forget to subscribe. This episode was sponsored by Audible.com. If you go to audibletrial.com/philosophytube, you can get a free audiobook. They have a whole bunch of philosophy books there for you to listen to, and you can get a free 30-day trial of their audiobook service that you can cancel anytime. And every time one of you signs up, I get a tiny bit of money, which I really appreciate.